guy in the World War II uniform, the one you were talking about. What's his name again? Yeah, he's
The other right of my block.
very
We don't have a horse. I end up taking a horse. Give him a ride all around the yard. Dietrich. Farm off and get a bunch of gas. You know, he wrote them. Perkins, they have both antique tractors. Just really cool. They married 6 hours drive. I made 6 hours on a tractor. Pretty close. Pretty close.
And the Frenchman are good.
Yes, the real man.
No, it's a 3-color. It's not black. I think it's red. Yeah.
Okay, we good? Got this on? Everything good? Good.
Don't get me in there.
Too late.
Nobody wants to look at this.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience as our honored guest from the Republic of France arrived. Thank you so much. It's a very warm day outside, so I can certainly understand any delays. And just want to say thank you, all of you, for being here today. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to this celebration of liberty and freedom as we honor a brave and gallant man, Dean Arthur Preston, who some 80 years ago left his home, his family, his friends, all who loved him, to undertake in what has been defined by General Eisenhower as a great and noble undertaking. Thank you for honoring Mr. Preston, the Republic of France, and each other with your presence here today. At this time, please rise if you are able. As I call forward the color guard from the Dragon Battalion of the Pekin Community High School, JRTC, as they present the colors. Gentlemen, ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, please kindly remain standing as I introduce accomplished Metropolitan tenor, Mr. Thomas Booth, accompanied by pianist Patricia Knight, as they perform the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight on the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rained clear, the ones bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner still wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Face. Forward. March.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. I want to thank the professionalism of the color guard. Excellent job, young men and women. I think our nation is in good hands with these cadets that we have. Of course, Tom and Patricia, thank you so much. That was beautiful. Before we progress further in our program today, I would first like to take a moment to remember the servicemen and women who have selflessly served for the cause of liberty and freedom. Please join me in a moment of silent meditation to remember those who have given their last full measure of devotion, which President Lincoln spoke so eloquently of in his immortal 1863 Gettysburg Address. Thank you. I am not a military man. I'm dressed today as my great uncle, Steve Simcoe, a mechanic in the 422nd Night Fighter Group. He and 10 other members of my family and my stepfather served in World War II. I'm wearing his uniform to honor his service. And I'm wearing my great uncle's dog tags, killed on Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944. Looking back 79 years ago from this very moment, Dean Preston and his fellow soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force were a mere week into their amphibious landings upon the coast of southern France. Since 1940, the occupied citizens of one of Europe's most beautiful regions, had long awaited their liberation from Nazi tyranny. Operation Dragoon, the opening of a second front on French soil, coupled with the first being the landings in Normandy on the 6th of June, was designed to stretch the enemy's resources, dislodge them, and destroy them from two distinct directions. Forces from America, Australia, Britain, Canada, France, Greece, South Africa, and New Zealand, significantly aided by members of the French resistance, assured that once the landings on the soil began, the enemy would be set back upon their heels immediately. Throughout today's ceremony, in that little known invasion of southern France would become the centerpiece of Dean Preston's overseas service. But for now, friends, please kindly allow me to introduce our special guest for today's extraordinary program. Monsieur Yannick Tagand, Consul General of France to the Midwest. Press Attaché Pascal Furlong, the Consul's Press Secretary. Thank you, Pascal. Sergeant Major David Merrick, United States Army retired. He is from the Pekin Community High School. He's a senior Army instructor. Mr. Buster Hanley, Executive Director of the Preston Hanley Funeral Home, LLC. Representing the United States Senator Dick Durbin, Mr. Daniel Bean, Senatorial Aide. Representing Congressman Darren LaHood, Mr. Joseph Roberts, District Aide. Representing State Representative William Howard, Ms. Ann Fisher, Chief of Staff. Representing State Senator Sally Turner, Ms. Barb Fromish, Legislative Assistant. Is the mayor? No. Sorry. Representing Pekin City Council, Councilman John A. The staff and leadership of our host, the Preston Hanley Funeral Home, with Mr. Buster Serbley as General Manager, who along with his staff has embraced this event, honoring Mr. Preston from the get-go. And I was here yesterday, spent several hours here, and I never saw a more professional group of people. So thank you, Buster. And of course, the backbone of America, every veteran present and active duty members of our armed services, and those aspiring to be the next greatest generation. Welcome and thank you for your service to our great country. And of course, seated to my right is our honoree, Corporal Dean A. Preston, who is turning 99 years of age this November. Thank you. Before I introduce our first of several featured speakers and presenters today, please allow me to explain how a Southern boy, transplant from Pittsburgh, lived now in Northeast Tennessee, came to know Dean Preston, and why we're all here today. On a somewhat chilly evening in Tennessee a couple Februarys ago, an article came across my newsfeed about a 97-year-old World War II veteran still working at this very home here in Pekin. Within that article, written by Pekin Daily Times writer Mike Kramer. Mike, where are you? Thank you, Mike. We haven't met yet, but thank you, Mike, for that article, because in that article, the magic words, fought in France. And immediately I picked up the phone and called Mr. Hanley. And at first, I think Buster thought, here's this guy from Northeast Tennessee with a Pittsburgh number talking a lot about the French, some sort of French medal we knew nothing about. These things happen certainly every day, I know. So after sending some information and details about France's highest honor, references and such, within a few weeks I was on the phone with Mr. Preston for the very first time. We chatted for a little more than 2 hours in that first phone call, then another 2, then some more. And then by the end of March, the application and supporting documentation for the Legion of Honor had been submitted on his behalf. Not only was that first conversation with Dean the beginning of our new friendship, but one with Buster as well. So that is what brings us here today. Buster and his twin brother Charles literally grew up in this funeral home. In 1965, 4 years before their birth, their father purchased this very same Hallmark home and business from Clarence and Roland Preston, Dean's cousins, which founded a funeral home in 1934 right here. This two-story mansion built in 1868 was once the residence of Honorable Tice Smith, one of Pekin's founding fathers. Inside and out, this beautiful 155-year-old home is a testament to the Smith family's prosperity and their importance to Pekin during the post-Civil War era. Now today, here, this site of this amazing tribute to this amazing man. Ladies and gentlemen, please come to welcome our hosts and still Dean's boss, Mr. Buster.
Thank you. We certainly want to take a moment and offer a warm welcome to Consul General Pekin. Thank you for coming down and being with us this day. Also, a warm welcome to Sergeant Major Merritt, those representing our state and federal officials, our veterans, and especially Dean and his family. Grateful that you could be here today. Traveling from Minnesota and then also from New Orleans. Did I say that right? I'll say I'm proud to serve alongside Dean. Our whole team is grateful to work alongside him. He is a true gentleman, a steady individual, and truly garners everyone's respect. I've known Dean since I was a young man in high school. Upon his retirement from American Distilling, our dad approached Dean about coming to work here as a part-time associate, working the door, and as our hearse driver. Fast forward 37 years, and Dean has now worked here longer than his full-time job at the distillery. Pretty incredible. When I think of Dean, I think of a person with a high sense of honor and a deep sense of personal responsibility. His character, his integrity are remarkable, unquestioned, and definitely worth celebrating this day. Looking back, Dean was the Director of Safety and Security at the distillery before he became the Superintendent of the bottling facilities. For years, we have witnessed countless coworkers looking for and approaching Dean at visitations just to thank him for his kindness and fairness as a boss so many years before. And a few of you are here today. Even my former mentor, Doug Snell, had great things to say about Dean when he worked for the distillery as a summer job when he was in college. I also believe his service as an auxiliary member of the Tazewell County Sheriff's Department, a position of public trust, further demonstrates his good character. Dean was a first lieutenant on the auxiliary under Sheriff Jim Donahue for a number of years, riding along with deputies and serving our county. He was a steady force on the auxiliary, no doubt helping to shape some of the deputies he was around with his even temperament in all situations. American writer and pastor John Maxwell has said that character is a choice to be bigger on the inside than you are on the outside. A choice to spend more time developing your character than your image. And this is the impressive. So in closing, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Dean's dear wife, Alberta. They were an awesome couple. So grateful to have known them. Alberta, looking back, served as a hairstylist here at our funeral home. And I think that's how the introduction came together and Dean coming on staff. They were an awesome couple, and there is no doubt she, along with Dean's parents, along with his life experiences, influenced the man he matured to be. So I'm thankful for Dean. I'm thankful for the men and women like Dean who have restored and protected our liberties, both here and abroad. Dean is a special man to admire and a great role model for a younger generation. Thank you for celebrating Dean with us this day, and Dean, we celebrate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Buster. Well spoken. I just want to thank you again personally for all your, appreciate you very much. And your trust. Our next speaker, for 4 generations, love of country and military service has been a way of life. Both his parents have served in the United States Air Force. His grandfather saw combat action like Mr. Preston in the Battle of the Bulge. And his son Gunnar, a Rakusan, translated from Japanese, meaning fallen umbrella, is presently assigned to the 3rd Brigade Combat Team of the famed 101st Airborne Division. Since serving our great country since 1992, steadily over the next 30 years, Sergeant Major Merritt has advanced his skill set from a simple fuel supply specialist to the NCO responsible for training the Illinois Army National Guard in Springfield. As part of this noteworthy military career, Sergeant Major Merritt has served in Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom and in Poland as part of a partnership with Poland's Territorial Defense Forces. His accomplishments and achievements, too many to mention this afternoon, show his commitment to excellence in serving every citizen of our great nation. Through combined leadership and dedication, he presently serves as a senior Army instructor at Pekin's Community High School's JROTC program. All this being said, certainly you must agree with me that these aspiring young men and women have a strong role model to follow. Ladies and gentlemen, please, I am proud to introduce to you Sergeant Major David Merritt, USA.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I want to thank Mr. Preston for allowing me to be a part of this service today. This is a huge honor, and I'm excited to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, Consul General Tagand, distinguished guests, excuse me, it's a pleasure to be here and an honor to speak in front of all of you today. Like Eric said, I served just over 30 years on active duty and as a member of the Illinois Army National Guard. I and all those that I served with did so in the footsteps of great men like Mr. Preston. He and great men like my grandfather, PFC Boyd Hawes, who like Mr. Preston fought in the Battle of the Bulge, continuing the legacy of their American servicemen. I didn't know much about my grandpa's service. To be quite honest, if it wasn't for a photograph I found of his battalion in the basement of his house with my brothers and sisters, I may not have known he ever served at all. He didn't speak much about it. I don't think many soldiers of that generation do. When I would ask him questions about his service, he would always tell me the same old story. His commanding officer would always ask him, or would always tell him, "You need to shave." My grandpa would look at him and say, "I don't need to shave." The CO would say, "You need to shave." My grandpa would do this, "I don't need to shave, I don't have any hair on my face." And the CO would say, "You need to shave, or you'll be doing extra duty." And to which, excuse me, my grandpa he would always laugh when he told me that story. And I think it really hit home with him, because I never saw a hair on that man's face for the rest of my life, for the rest of his life. I'm 50 years old and I still can't grow a beard. So I understand where he was coming from. My grandpa passed away roughly 8 years ago, and it wasn't until then that I learned what he actually did in the Army. I found his World War II yearbook and discovered that he was a member of Gun Team 4, Bravo Company, 143rd Anti-Aircraft Artillery. He moved throughout Europe, and he fought the Battle of the Bulge. I read that yearbook cover to cover and thought to myself, come on, Grandpa, the best story you came up with was about razor blades and shaving cream. Men like my grandpa, men like Mr. Preston, are silent heroes. No need to tell war stories. They were sent to fight a war, and they did so honorably. They came back home, they went to work, and they lived their lives. However, they should be recognized for their service, and their stories should be told. For it is soldiers like them that inspire others to join. I would like to thank Mr. Montgomery for his service to World War II veterans around the country, for recognizing their sacrifice and commitment to our great nation. Every member of the military joins for a different reason. For some, it's a sense of pride in country. Some are inspired by stories of family or friends, such as Mr. Preston. And for others, it's simply, they have simply no other option in life. I myself joined for the college money. Of course, I knew my parents were prior service Air Force, and that my grandpa had fought in the Battle of Bulge. So there was an unconscious motivation involved to make them proud as well. I enlisted in August 1992. My initial contract was for 2 years and 21 weeks. 30 years and 3 months later, I retired. So why did I stay the additional 28 years? Simple. I really enjoyed being in the Army. I took great pride in putting that uniform on every single day. I wanted to be part of something that was bigger than myself, and I found that in the Army. I wanted to be part of an already established legacy of what it means to be a soldier. In March 2003, my unit was activated and sent to Iraq in support of Iraqi freedom. I don't believe anybody's really ready to go to war. I knew I wasn't. At that point in my life, I was 30 years old and had 2 young children. But you go and you rely on your training, and you do what you need to do to survive. I was able to speak and see my grandpa before I left, and his advice to me was simple: stay safe. He gave me a little pocket Bible that his church had given him prior to leaving, the very Bible he carried with him in Europe during the war. His name was on it, and it was dated August 24th, 1943. I was deployed for 17 months, but I was in a fairly safe place. I was stationary the whole time. I thought of my grandpa's unit quite often and how during World War II, units moved all over Europe. Not all units, not all soldiers during the War on Terror were as lucky as I was. I now, more than ever, have such great respect for the warfighter. Don't get me wrong, I was in harm's way, but soldiers like Mr. Preston and my grandpa are the real heroes. I just hope my generation adds to the legacy that they helped build. That Bible that turned toward Europe, Kuwait, and Iraq is still with me, and it's awaiting handoff to my son, a real warfighter who was stationed in Fort Campbell. The Army has a long, rich, and honorable history built upon its core values. These values have morphed over time to what they are today, but regardless of the word used to describe them, the meaning is the same. These values are loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. Of course, when you hear these words, we all place our own meaning behind them. I bet our meanings are very similar. The real question is, do you live up to them? It's difficult at times for sure, but as young soldiers, these values are instilled into us the moment we step off that bus of basic training. These values become part of who we are in everyday life, in and out of uniform, and they stay with us for a lifetime. I had the opportunity to read through Mr. Preston's biography, and I immediately recognized examples of all 7 values that he displayed during his time in service and his life afterwards. I would like to share with you what it means to live up to the 7 Army values and what it takes to be a good soldier and a better person. Loyalty. Mr. Preston's dedication to his unit and actions during the war, not to mention his post-war life that consisted of 28 years as a bottling superintendent at the American Distilling Company, plus 7 more years at Midwest Grain, and 35 years here at the funeral home. Duty. During Operation Dragoon, in support of the United States 9th Army Air Force, Mr. Preston relayed messages by teletype between the advancing troops and flight controllers directing the pilots above. Respect. Following the war, fellow fellow radio man Ted Richardson credited Corporal Preston with saving his life somewhere along the way. Selfless service. Mr. Preston initially wanted to be an aircrew gunner, but due to needs of the Army, he became a radio repairman. In his spare time following the war, Mr. Preston spent 12 years as a member of Tazewell County Sheriff's Auxiliary Patrol. He's a lifelong member of the Empire Lodge 126, ancient, free, and accepted Masons of Illinois and Pekin, American Legion Post 144, a former member of Pekin Barbershop Chorus, a youth counselor, and a drum sergeant of the Shrine Kilty Band in Peoria. Honored. Mr. Preston lived the Army values, and for his service, we are all here today to honor him as he receives France's highest award. Integrity. Mr. Preston has always done what is right, from enlisting in the service, accepting his assignments, saving his buddy's life, and serving his country and his community. Personal courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward in spite of fear. Mr. Preston, along with his brother Jim, voluntarily enlisted into the service during a very fearful time ahead of the draft. Ladies and gentlemen, if this is not a person that personifies the 7 Army values, I don't know what one is. As a senior non-commissioned officer in the United States Army, I always tried to talk with younger soldiers and instill in them a sense of pride in the Army, their unit, and themselves. To teach them the history and legacy of those who came before them and what it takes to become a better soldier and a better person. Now, as a senior Army instructor at Pekin's JROTC program, our goal is not to enlist the cadets into the military. Our mission statement is to motivate young people to become better citizens. We share our military experience with our cadets, but more importantly, we try to instill in them core values, much like the values that Mr. Preston lived by. The United States is the greatest nation in the world and has the most powerful military in the world. And although the enemy may have changed over the years, the intent behind their aggression remains the same: to destroy our values and our way of life. It will be the legacy that Mr. Preston, my grandfather, and perhaps even myself helped build that will inspire the next generation of heroes to fight and win our nation's battles. Mr. Preston, God bless you, and thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Major Merritt. Beautifully done. I hope that people that are watching this broadcast live across the globe are listening to your words. I firmly believe that we are all here today to show our love and admiration for Mr. Preston, not only as a soldier, but as a man. We do this on a personal level. Yet when the whole nation expresses their love and appreciation for those that serve bravely on their own territory, fighting for their freedom, fighting for their liberty, most assuredly, that sentiment has to be expressed from a man who has devoted his life to international relations. Monsieur Yannick Tagand was appointed the Consul General of France in Chicago in September 2021, with jurisdiction for 13 states across the Midwest. A graduate from the University of Pantheon, Sorbonne, where he obtained a master's in international relations from the National Institute of Oriental Languages and Civilizations, where he obtained a degree in Arabic. He began his career at the French Ministry for Europe and European Affairs in 2005. In 2007, he was assigned to the Department of North Africa and Middle East, where his responsibilities included the bilateral relations between France and Egypt, as well as France and Jordan. In 2009, he joined the French Embassy in Egypt as a spokesman and head of the press department. He was then posted in Brussels from 2013 to 2017 as counselor for the Near and Middle East, a permanent representation of France to the European Union. Prior to his present assignment, Yannick Tagand was Deputy Director for Egypt and the Levant region within the Department of North Africa and Middle East of the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs. Mesdames and Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, please kindly express very warm and hot land of Lincoln. Welcome to Consul General Yannick Tagand.
Thank you very much for having me today. Dear Mr. Preston, family, distinguished guests, I'm honored and moved to be in Pekin today for this very special tribute to you, Mr. Preston. In a few minutes, I will have the immense privilege to present to you, on behalf of the President of the French Republic, my country's highest distinction, the French Legion of Honor. And all the reasons for which you have been granted this distinction, and for all what has been said by very eloquent speakers before me, make me feel even more privileged. Mr. Preston, this medal and today's ceremony aim to mark France's eternal gratitude and recognition for your outstanding participation in the liberation of France during World War II. Corporal Preston, you were just 19 years old when you voluntarily entered into service in March of 1943. Being a volunteer gave you the privilege of selecting a branch of service. This is how you became a radio communication specialist, which was much needed on the front. Many years have passed since you left your family and this community for your military training and for your service. But France has not forgotten. You first started a long journey within the US. You entered into active service at Scottsfield, Illinois. After basic training in Florida, you integrated a school of advanced radio repair at Camp Crowder in Joplin, Missouri. And finally, it is from Camp Patrick Henry in Virginia that you embarked aboard a Liberty ship for North Africa on April 22nd, 1944. And this was the beginning of your journey to Europe. Mr. Preston, after further training in Oran, Algeria, you and your fellow servicemen left for Italy, where you were assigned to the 927th Signal Battalion, a battalion which provided invaluable support to the troops throughout the war. Your duty was to install, operate, and maintain signal communications between the command headquarters and the battlefield, making sure the transmissions were operational, reliable, and clear at all times. After the fall of Rome in June 1944, the turning point in the Italian campaign, a new mission was awaiting you, Operation Dragoon. Operation Dragoon is the code name for the landing operation of the Allied invasion of Provence in southern France. You departed Naples, Italy, and landed in France in Saint-Raphaël on August 15. In direct support of the United States 9th Army Air Force, 12th Tactical Air Command, based on the French island of Corsica, your role was to relay messages by teletype between the advancing troops and the flight controllers. For the second time that year, a fantastic armada landed on our shores. The Allied forces, alongside the French troops and with the help of the resistance, took the occupying army by surprise, and the ports in the region were quickly liberated. Then, Mr. Preston, you advanced north through the Rhone Valley, directly assisting the troops with their communication needs as they were repelling the enemy and as they liberated occupied cities and villages. In the fall and winter of 1944 and 45, as you were following the advance of the 7th Army, you were on the front line when heavy fighting took place during the crossing of the Moselle River in the Vosges Mountains and in the plains of Alsace. You were present during the raging combat on the Maginot and Siegfried lines and throughout the Ardennes offensive, where you got caught in the middle of two fronts, somewhere near Metz and north. Finally, in March of 1945, you entered Germany, and later you joined the European occupation force to guard and transport German prisoners of war in France. And it's only on November 1st, 1945, 18 months after you left Virginia, you returned to the United States. Mr. Preston, this ceremony comes 1 week after the official commemorations of D-Days in southern France. So I would like here to reference the speech of President Emmanuel Macron, which roughly translates to, "Let us never forget the lesson of courage and commitment given to us by our liberators, which enforces the sense of duty and must inspire us every day. These allies who came to die on our soil, on a land that for some they had never set foot upon, for the freedom of France and the values they share with us." Mr. Preston, thanks to your unfailing determination and bravery, you and your companions have restored hope to millions of people, hope that had been crushed by intolerance, violence, and the tyranny of the Nazis and the fascists. Mr. Preston, you are part of the greatest generation, an exceptional generation of men and women who had put their ideals, their might, and their courage to the service of democracy and the dignity of humankind. For your outstanding service during war, you have received many distinctions from the United States. Today, France wishes to honor you, as well as the memory of all those who have endured the war and all those soldiers who did not return home. Mr. Preston, you're a true hero, a real hero, maybe a silent hero, but you're a hero. Because thanks to you, I grew up in a free country. In a country that has been living in peace for almost 8 decades, which is the longest period of continuous peace in modern French history. The French-American friendship has profound and long-lasting roots, deeply anchored within the Midwest and Illinois. It has endured many centuries and outlived many political paths. And the French people will never forget what we owe you and all the American people. We will remain loyal to the legacy, sacrifice, and the values of the heroes who liberate Western Europe. Dear Mr. Preston, I could not be more honored to be the one to present you the Legion of Honor Medal today. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, and I will now have to proceed in French.
Monsieur Dean Preston, au nom du président de la République française, je vous fais chevalier dans l'ordre de la Légion d'honneur. Félicitations. Congratulations. All right, that's more better. That's good.
Ladies and gentlemen, in celebration of the friendship between the United States and the Republic of France, please rise if you are able as we honor America's first ally in freedom with the presentation of the Marseillaise, the French national anthem, performed by Thomas and Patricia. Please face the front. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Thomas, Patricia, thank you. Wonderfully done. Thank you, Thomas. Please, Thomas and Patricia. And once again, congratulations to Sir Preston. I am calling Sir from here on out. Congratulations. On behalf of Illinois State Senator Dick Durbin, Senator Dick Durbin at the federal level, I'm sorry. Didn't want to demote the long-standing senator, sorry. And the great citizens of Illinois he represents. District A, Mr. Daniel Bean has come up from Senator Durbin's Springfield office to be with us here today. At this time, I would ask you to please welcome Daniel, and come forward, Daniel, to express the Senator's greetings and present his letter of congratulations. Daniel.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Bean, and on behalf of the offices of Senator Richard J. Durbin and Tammy Duckworth, it is an absolute pleasure and privilege to be here to congratulate Mr. Dean A. Preston on being a recipient of the French Legion of Honor. Mr. Preston, this tribute recognizes your bravery and service during World War II, which not only contributed to the liberation of France, but safeguarded America's freedom and liberty. Your service to your country is an inspiration, and your dedication to your fellow servicemen and women is admirable. On behalf of the offices of United States Senators Richard J. Durbin and Tammy Duckworth, congratulations and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Daniel. On behalf of Representative Darren LaHood, representing Illinois' 16th Congressional District and the proud people he represents in Congress in Washington, D.C. I would like to welcome Mr. Joe Roberts, District Gauge of Representative LaHood, to please come forward and convey Representative LaHood's sentiments and congratulations to Chevalier Preston. Thank you, Joe.
I've spoken on Congressman LaHood's behalf several times, never after anything like that. So this is going to be a tough one. I appreciate your service. It's an honor to be here. I've heard many World War II stories. My father served under General Mark Clark in Italy, and he was awarded a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. So again, thanks for your service. So this was presented to the congressional record by Congressman Darren LaHood, July 28, 2023. Today, I would like to recognize World War II veteran Dean A. Preston for receiving the French Legion of Honor, which honors World War II veterans for their service as they fought to secure France's liberation. Dean earned several distinguished honors throughout his service, including American Campaign Medal, the European, African, Middle East Campaign Medal, with 5 campaign stars, the Army Good Conduct Medal, and the World War II Victory Medal. Dean's strong communication, bravery, and commitment to service distinguishes him as the recipient of the French Legion of Honor. We live in the greatest country in the world because of men and women like Dean. Dean is proud to have served and contributed to liberty and freedom. I extend my sincere congratulations to Dean A. Preston for receiving the French Legion of Honor. Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Joe, for your federal presentations. Now we'll go into our state level. On behalf of Representative William E. Howard, who represents Illinois' 87th District, I would like to welcome his Chief of Staff, Ms. Ann Fisher, to bring forth Representative Howard's and that of the Illinois General Assembly resolution to further recognize Chevalier Preston. Ann?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm honored to be able to be here on behalf of Representative William Howder to congratulate you on this amazing award in your service. Everyone who's spoken is a little bit tough act to follow, so I'm not sure what else I could say to further that. So on behalf of Representative Will Howder and the Illinois House of Representatives, I'm here to present you the House Resolution number 253, thanking you for your service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. On behalf of State Senator Sally J. Turner, the Illinois State Senate, please kindly welcome Ms. Barb Frobish, Legislative Assistant to Senator Turner, as she presents Chevalier Preston with a senatorial certificate from the Senator and the citizens of District 44. Barb?
Thank you. I'm honored to be here to represent State Senator Sally Turner and present this my State Senate certificate to Mr. Preston on behalf of the Senator and the Illinois State Senate. And thank you so much, sir, for your service.
Thank you very much, Barb. Thank you, everyone. Daniel, Joe, thank you so much, Ian. Chevalier Preston not only is a French Legion of Honor recipient, and I'm not sure if there's ever been one here from Pekin. So the first one, So not only has he has been the first recipient of the French Legion of Honor, but he's nearly 100 years of age and has seen so much history. Unfortunately, the mayor of Pekin could not be here with us today, but I do have one more gubernatorial letter of congratulations from G.B. Pritzker, and that will be presented by Councilman John Abel. John has worked here at the funeral home with Dean Preston for the last 34 years. Give or take a few. Not, don't want to make anybody older than what they are. So, John, please, the microphone is yours. Thank you.
Dean, on behalf of the state of Illinois and Governor Jamie Pritzker, we have a proclamation for you to honor you and your service and your life of commitment and service to this community.
Thank you, John. He was just recently re-elected, by the way. He must be doing a pretty good job. Am I right? Spoken like a true statesman. Unfortunately, our representatives from the 182nd could not be here today. I don't see anyone in a Army Air Force uniform. I did want to at least recognize them, but before I go on to the 182nd, which is right here in Peoria, a gentleman came up to me, and when I first started researching a venue and Mr. Preston and where could we have this service, and I was having difficulty finding a representative from the French community and the history of France in this area. But right before our presentation began here, I was approached by Mr. Bob Hoffner. He is an amateur historian like myself. We don't get paid for what we do, but we love doing what we do. So Bob is the part of the Sons of American Revolution. He is also instrumental with the French Heritage Society here in this area. So Bob, if you want to come on up and say a few words, please feel free. Thank you, Bob.
Well, first I want to thank the organizers of this event to allow a walk-on today, and I appreciate that very much. And there are two things that we want to pass on to you. One is from the French Heritage Society, the other is from the Sons of the American Revolution. And I would like to read at this time the letter from the French Heritage Society. It says, "Dear Mr. Preston, on behalf of French Heritage Society's Chicago Midwest Chapter and the French Heritage Corridor Initiative's leadership team, I offer you my sincere congratulations for the honor bestowed on you today by the government of France in recognition of your service to France during World War II. Ties of friendship between French people and the people of the Peoria and Pekin areas have existed for centuries. You have played an important role in preserving this long-standing and enduring friendship. Merci." I would like to pass this to Dean at this time and also ask Keith Bonnet if he would come forward and speak to you on behalf of the Sons of the American Revolution. Keith is our local chapter president of the Sons of the American Revolution.
It's good to see so many familiar faces here today. I'm a Pekin boy. Again, my name is Keith Bonnet. I'm the local president of the Sons of the American Revolution Society, local chapter, Captain City Moss. And a few things I have in common with Mr. Preston is, again, I graduated from Pekin High School. I'm a Pekin boy. And my grandfather was in the Single Corps in the Army in World War I, in Fort Sam, Houston, and San Antonio. He got there a little late, so he didn't have to get deployed over to France. So that was a good thing. Also, my dad is a veteran of the Greatest Generation. He was injured in an accident in his training in the Army, which kept him in the States as a clerk in a German prisoner of war camp. So by those fortunate or unfortunate incidents is probably why I'm here today. But again, I would like to present this certificate to you, a certificate of bravery, loyalty, and patriotism from the Sons of American Revolution. Thank you for your service, Mr. Preston.
As I mentioned, the 182nd, I think it's just important to note their history here in this area. And obviously, over the weekend, you may have seen a B-29 bomber flying around the community. And there's only 2 like them flying in the world. That was Fifi that went by. And the brave airmen that flew in that aircraft and had the courage to drop a couple of bombs to end the war. And not only their skill in combat aviation or aviation in general, but like I said, the courage to do that. I want to talk a little bit about the 182nd before we wrap up tonight's program. The 182nd's origins go back to World War II in 1942. And interestingly enough, in my conversations with Sir Preston over the past few days, he mentioned to me a Bell P-39 Airacobra that he had worked on in the winning months of the war. That Airacobra was piloted by a Russian pilot. And unfortunately, due to the language barrier, that radio was never repaired. And he flew back to Russia, whether or not he survived or not, we don't know. So let's hope that he did. The Airacobras are part of that original 304th Fighter Squadron, the forebears to the present day 182nd Airlift Wing. In commendation letters written by the staff of the 12th Tactical Air Command in 1944 and 45, executive officers praised the 927th Signal Battalion for their efforts and especially mentioned the radio teams as performing miracles under the most adverse conditions. They noted their efficiency and proficiency throughout the Southern France campaign and praised those men who performed those miracles as having played a most important role in winning a war which communications were more vital than ever. When I left Northeast Tennessee a couple of days ago, my next door neighbor took me to the airport, I'll be out here for a week or so, and we talked about communications and how vital our cell phones are to us today. As my neighbor got my luggage out of his car, I turned my back, and he was gone with my cell phone in his car. So if you could possibly imagine the panic that I was in as he drove through the very small airport that we have a biplane, even a triplane, and a couple of donkeys to pull them around. And I ran after Chris, my neighbor, and 60 years old, so used to play a lot of soccer, so thank God that was in handy. But I guess where I'm going with this, he saw me and took off. And so luckily a young lady from American Airlines came out and she said, "What's your problem?" I said, "Well, my buddy just left. He's got my cell phone. It's got everything that I'm going to be doing in the next few days here at Pekin." And She goes, what's his number? And I said, I don't know, it's in the phone. What's your number? Well, that I know. So, of course, that's all hoping that he knows how to answer it. So about 4 or 5 miles down the road, halfway to where I live, or we both live, he finally figured out that my phone was in his car because I called it a dozen times. And within about 20 minutes, he was back at the airport. And here we are today. So that's how vital communication is. I'd like to close with this. And once again, I thank everyone that's here today. I guess I'll put our messages out here first before I share these words. I've written them, rewritten them, talked about them in a lot of different ceremonies. And they all mean something special to each veteran. After the program, desserts, complimentary beverages, Preston Hanley and the staff here at the funeral home can rejoin the room. Photographs will be taken of all the speakers and presenters with Mr. Preston following, so if you want to stick around and take some few pictures of all the people that were kind enough to share their sentiments with Dean, and of course Consul General Tagand and his press secretary, Pascal Furlong, who I've known almost 10 years now. And let's see if there's, that's fine. So let's go into these last couple of words. When I look upon Sir Preston and the so many World War II veterans I've met over the years, what shines beyond their stories of duty and honor is pride. That humble pride is reflected in their smile, the firmness in their grip, and the air of confidence which surrounds them. Like the Army values to which Sergeant Major Merritt spoke up during his remarks, and as Consul General Tagand did as well during his. At the end of the Second World War, General Douglas MacArthur made reference to the calm, deliberate, and determined fighting spirit each soldier, sailor, and airman embraced as they fought their way towards victory. Emboldened in those characteristics forged in the crucible of war, through advancements in technology and science, that generation, which we call, in our time, the greatest generation, applied both triumphs and tragedies to the cause of the greater good for all mankind, friend and foe alike. Taking that pioneering technology, and with further advancements in the years which followed, modern radio, communications as a whole, build a better world for all of us, enabling family and friends across the globe to be closer than ever despite vast distances. That all being said, Sir Preston, I truly believe that everyone here today and watching across the world right now, anyone who values their liberty and freedom, owes you and all those who serve for that cause the deepest respect and gratitude. God bless you, sir. Friends, please rise if you are able. At this time, I would like to call upon the color guard from the Dragon Battalion of the Community High School, JROTC, to retire the colors.
Forward, march.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated or convince us as customary at celebrations like this. Thank you so much for attendance.
Respect for a meeting yet? Yeah. Respect for a committee meeting yet, so. See you guys later. Eric?
We won't tell anybody that.
There we go. Good to see you guys.
It's been many moons since I've seen a long time, Sandra. Oh, I'm about the same.
Oh, yeah, I have a picture somewhere. I'm gonna. Yeah, I want to get all the whole group. Figured he was probably looking at me.
Well, you got a lot of stuff.
Well, it wasn't as hot in here as I thought it was going to
You got big pockets. I can carry one.
I might get a picture with all with the guys with Dean and Eric.
Should we turn that off?
I want to see what Eric wants to do.
How'd Eric do?
There we go.
You take care of it.
Oh, he's up the front. We're gonna. Different. I mean, I've never seen anything like this again. I think there's a. I'm not sure. There ain't been very many of those in. There's a. But yeah, you have to ask Eric that. I'm not for sure. I'll introduce you. We're gonna go up there in a minute. And yeah. I'm gonna take this up there. Yeah, hold on a second.
No, I'm retired. I'm Army, and I worked in Peoria, though, on the other side where the Chinook helicopters are parked. That's where I worked. So I was in the aviation battalion for 20 years, and then I went to the brigade, and then I ended up down in Springfield with the state headquarters. Is where I ended my career. So, yeah, I was in Peoria from 2000 to 2020. I went to the brigade in 2018, so when I was in aviation battalion for 18 years. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, David Ware. Oh, okay. What'd you fly?
Charlie Model Hueys.
The Hueys? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I got an opportunity to fly on one of those before they got rid of them. My first duty position, I was on active duty. I was down in Fort Hood, Texas, in the 227 Aviation. And I was a fueler, and we was an aviation brigade, so we had Hueys, 58s, Apaches, Chinooks, Blackhawk. We did them all, and I got an opportunity to fly on a Huey, which was the most uncomfortable ride of my life, but nonetheless, I was able to do it, so it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's neat. Well, the Charlie model was a modified B model. Okay. They just put the pods on it, extra set of hydraulics. The had the wider blades.
Okay.
You couldn't control it without hydraulic.
Yeah.
You could land a B model. They trained us to do that without it. But,
Are you from this area?
yeah. Well, I grew up in Murfreesboro.
So when I was in Iraq, we still had, I want to say 4 pilots, or at least 4 Army guys, right? But I think they're all that flew in Vietnam that were still flying, and I believe they all flew Kiwis, and then they transitioned over to the Chinooks. That's why the border was with the Chinook company out of Europe.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of Black Hawk pilot friends as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they're good aircraft. I was just talking to a fellow at the Prairie Aviation Museum, hoping that flew Hueys in Iraq. And in fact, he was in one that broke the tail unit. I guess stress stage and stuff.
I never saw a Huey in Iraq. They probably were fine.
I've had him 70 years.
Yeah, they were in a major part, but
And then I worked
yeah.
And then I met him because I moved out here.
He's another Vietnam
You too. Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate you guys.
Good job.
I started out at 16 years old, directed
You set it all up. We started off as just a phone call, hey, can your color guard do it, to, can you be the guest speaker, and can you bring more kids to help? And it's like, yeah, sure. That's what we're here for.
He said they started.
Absolutely.
Quite a ceremony. Where you want to sit?
Here, let's just move this here.
San Mark says I see you a lot. Santa Mark says I see
Thank you.
I'm not really lying here. Appreciate it.
Major, I wanted to thank you for your